Good morning, board members. Good morning to all who may be listening online. I am very pleased and excited to call to order Day 3 of the North Carolina High School Athletic Association Winter Board Meeting. As we start, and I'll have an opportunity to share towards the end of our meeting, I again want to highlight the work of this board. It is a rare occurrence. I especially want to mention to our brand new board members or those board members who are in their first year, it's a rare occurrence that we have 3-day meetings. So please don't feel like every time we meet it's going to be for 3 days. But I can share with you that I have been encouraged and greatly appreciative and quite frankly have learned from the leadership you have modeled in that throughout our time together. I've watched as you have been absolutely attentive to the issues at hand. You've been very participative greatly, and you've been in the moment. And so kudos to this board and to each individual member for your hard work. Today is really a day of celebration, particularly as we have the opportunity. One of my favorite parts of our board meetings to hear from our student advisor. We'll hear from him in just a moment, but also to hear from our affiliate members. And so we look forward to this day in our board meetings, and not just because it's the last day, but because it's our opportunity to celebrate the great things happening in education-based athletics across the great state of North Carolina. And so at this time, I'd like to recognize Evan Sauer from our staff to introduce an incredible young man who has the opportunity to share with us. Evan?
Good morning, everybody. Like Dr. Jackson said, I want to take this opportunity to introduce Evan Sauer. He's a senior staff representative of ours from Rockingham County. He's currently in the middle, or I guess at the early stages of his basketball season. And he just wants to give you all and everybody listening a little brief update and report on what our staff members are doing, not only at the start of this year, but some goals that we have moving forward to the end of the year and also into the summertime. Evan, thank you for being here and appreciate everything you do. Good morning, everybody. As he said, my name is Evan Shotwell. I'm a senior at Rockingham County High School. I'm honored to stand in front of you today as a Student Athlete Advisory Council representative by participating in education-based athletics, football, cross-country, basketball, track and field, and baseball during my high school career. I was afforded the opportunity to join the SAC program offered by the Athletic Association. Today, I want to take some time to discuss with you the goals, opportunities, and requirements of the SAC program. Over the past couple of years, I've completed many of the requirements set aside by the Athletic Association to participate in the SAC program. I've been able to attend many of our meetings held right here in the office. I've been able to attend state championship events and assist on site. I've completed my community service project, and lastly, some of you here know, I was able to speak in front of you during the Region 5 meeting a few months ago. As a group, we have set aside some lofty goals for this upcoming year. Major goal, and one that we will be working on during the next meeting, December 4th, is a Student Leadership Conference. We as the SAC team plan to develop a subcommittees to take on different responsibilities throughout the planning stage. There will be an advisory and leadership committee, budget committee, food and beverage committee, so much more to go into this, making the Student Leadership Conference a success for everyone. Another part of the equation we understand is the logistical challenge in picking a date, time, and location so that all student athletes that want to attend have the opportunity to do so. We hope to get this information out to the member schools around first of the year so they can help spread the word to student athletes at their schools. And lastly, I want to talk about some opportunities that SAC and NCHSAA has provided me. One of the first things that I'm really grateful for is just the opportunity to attend all the state championship events. My school, we don't get to really participate in many of those. So it's definitely a good opportunity to go and see those. And so, and the next thing is I was able to attend the National Student Leadership Conference this summer, and I didn't really understand how big of a deal that was, but after going there, it really changed my life. I was able to travel with Evan, Mr. Tucker, and a couple of other student athletes to Indianapolis, and I got to go with other student athletes like from around the world or country, and we got to listen to some really inspirational talks, and it's changed my life, and I'm still friends with them today. Thank you for your time.
I understand Evan poured in 14 points last night in his basketball game.
See, Rodney, tell you
And of course, there's a proud dad in the back corner back there. May or may not know. Our esteemed former colleague, Dr. Rodney Shotwell. We're so glad to have him.
Thank you, Mr. President, appreciate that.
Absolutely. Always welcome. What a perfect and awesome introduction to our day's meeting. One of the things we can never lose sight of, that the reason we exist as an organization and the reason many of us do the work we do every single day is because of young people like Evan. What a fine example of student athletes. Thank you so much, Evan, not only for your presentation today, but your work over the course of your time on the Advisory Council for representing us so well, particularly at the national level. Very proud of you and very much appreciate you. Thank you. Board members, at this time, we have the opportunity to move into our affiliate member reports, and we'll discuss later. Thank you. I apologize, board members. Commissioners keeping me on track, which is exactly what we hope we want to do. As you'll recall, we had a change in our agenda yesterday to afford us the opportunity to make the assignment for the new schools to the membership or schools that had been independent, and also to make a determination for those schools who had requested a potential change at the mid-alignment point. The change we made to our agenda was to move our investment report to this morning from yesterday, and so we're very delighted to have the opportunity to hear again about the status of the Athletic Association for investment. Madam Associate Commissioner, thank you. Karen DeHart, if you will introduce us and kick us off.
Certainly. Thank you, Dr. Jackson. We're fortunate to work with the Fordham Group, Morgan Stanley, and we have a wonderful representative with us this morning, Mr. Jeff Hudson. He has worked with the Association Investment Accounts for many, many years. And prior to that, his dad actually worked with us when Charlie Adams was the executive director. So they have a long-standing relationship with the association. They understand what the mission is, and they're very good stewards of the of our finances. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Now, I don't know if you're going to pull off or you're going to go into the Am I doing that? Okay. Hands out inside. You have a handout? Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to when we talk about this year in the market, anybody, I think you think of your own investment, it's been a challenging year in the market. It's not only from a standpoint of stocks, but also bonds. Going through the different asset classes, what you see is that bonds are actually down 15% year to date. If you look at the S&P 500, it's down 16 or 17% year to date. Small cap stocks, international, down over 20% year to date. And then also the technology stocks down 20-some%. So a very challenging year. A lot of that has come from the fact that we have a Federal Reserve that's battling inflation. So inflation has been really the driver of the market. So what the Federal Reserve does is it raises interest rates to try to slow the economy. And that has a negative impact on just about every asset class, slowing the economy down. Now, when you think about the allocation for North Carolina high school, we've always had a moderate growth allocation, which means it's about 60% stocks and 40% bonds would be close to normal. Last year, when the markets were very elevated and looked very expensive, we took a more defensive stance within the portfolio. And that meant taking down the amount of exposure we had to technology that looked very expensive, and also adding some low volatility investments in lieu of bonds. So as we look at the calendar year, your portfolio is off about 12%. Oh, here we go. Okay, great. So you can see I was mostly accurate in everything I said.
Testing you.
Yeah, okay. But you can see, you look at all the different places you can put money, and there's really not a good place to do that. But if you'll click forward, wherever's, okay, and you can see our allocation, and you'll note the alternative slide. So that's what we added to last year. We also, some money out of traditional stocks and added convertible bonds, which are stock-like, but not as volatile. So if we click forward, okay, yeah, this is a longer-term chart. I like to point out, if you think about where you were in 2018, and this is the main endowment, and we use that as an example. If we drew a straight line from 18 to where we are today, it would look pretty good. But of course, we had the COVID high of massive government stimulation that drove the markets up, and then we've had the correction to follow. But again, you can see over the long term, the value is continuing to go up. So the next slide, go one more for me. Okay, so here's where you are, and you can see the custom period is your new fiscal year. So you can see we're up for the fiscal year, almost 4% through the date of this report. It's actually closer to 5% down. And you can see versus the benchmark outperforming. Year to date, down 12.5 versus a balanced portfolio being down about 15. But over the long term, this portfolio has averaged a little bit over 8%, which is very much in line with what we would want to be for the risk level that you have. So we'll flip to the next. Peeling back the onion just a little bit, you'll see our equities for our year to date, you can see down much less than the market. For our custom period, up about 8%, and over time, averaging about 10%, which is what we would expect. As you get down to fixed income, and you can see fixed income really struggled this year, down 15%. But below that, the alternatives, where we moved some of the fixed income money to, is only down 2.5%. So that really helped us on the downside. So being more defensive really helped this year. Now, we may be getting to a point where we want to change that and move back towards a more opportunistic and I'll explain that later. So if we go to the next slide. Okay, and this, again, this is the Fed. This is what they use to look at inflation, and you can see that we've got this spike over here that went up, and then you see that it's starting to come down, and we're seeing it in housing and autos. The real sticky parts have been wages because we don't have enough employees right now, jobs that are out there, and then food has also been very sticky. So those are the things we've got to see start coming down a little bit before they take their foot off the pedal. So, next slide. This one, you know, it's funny because we use a lot of indicators as predictive things. And, you know, I like this as a reminder because we all go through these emotions with the market, right? And if I were to ask people around the table, you think about your own investments, are you optimistic or are you concerned? Who's optimistic? That's good. No, actually, that's. I was scared everybody was going to raise their hand, and then this would be for not. Okay, so if you look back and you see where euphoria is, okay, that was last year. And euphoria, everybody's excited. You see all these speculative investments going on. Think about Bitcoin and SPACs and all these weird things. Went straight up. So that's usually the top of the market. That's what you see by the retail investor. Now, at the bottom, depression, capitulation, panic, all these things. We think we saw capitulation in September. That's when the market really sold down and people were just saying, get me out. That is the optimal point to invest. And I know it, we all know in our brains that it makes sense, right? You buy low and sell high. It's the hardest part of what we do. So if we flip forward, this is consumer confidence in the S&P and what happens 12 months forward. And so if you look, right now, consumer confidence is very, very low. In fact, you have to go back almost to the 80s to see anything close. But when you look at other periods where we were really low consumer confidence and then what the returns going forward were, 15%, 22%, way down at the end, 20%. Okay. So it kind of reconfirms that thought process when everybody's negative, usually returns are better going forward. So we want to keep that in mind as we're positioning the portfolio. So I've just got a few more here I'll show you. Right now, as far as stocks valuations have gone, you see the valuations got very high in 2021, and they've come back into being close to average. Not cheap yet. That's, with stocks, that's one of the things, it's kind of a maybe. Maybe we're there. And then the next one is bonds. And if you go up, and I'm going to really focus on this little piece of the bond now. Yield to worst is if you buy a bond and hold it to maturity. And so, look, right now, on A-rated corporate bonds, you have yield to worst, which is between 5 and 5.7. Most bonds right now are selling at 92 cents on the dollar. Within your bond portfolio, the yield to worst is almost 6%. The Fed stock, to extrapolate that out, it would say that over the next 5 years, if you just held the bonds, you would get 6% per year. It doesn't work like that. So 6 times 5 is 30. So there's 30% embedded in the next 5 years. When the Fed stops raising interest rates, those bonds are likely to go from 92 cents on the dollar, which is 8%. We think we could see double-digit returns in bonds over the next 12 to 18 months. The caveat to that would be that if inflation kept going up despite the Fed. So one of the things we want to do as stewards of the money is take advantage of these opportunities. So where we have some defensive pieces in our allocation that were in lieu of bonds, we want to start adding back to bonds and see if we can't get that extra return out of them when the Fed stops raising rates. So that's kind of, I'll let that be the bulk of the presentation to say probably more volatility come in stocks, but I don't think we'll go lower than we've been. And the first opportunity set we see is right now in bonds, and we'll add to them. So I'll stop there and open it up for questions.
Questions from board members? I'll make a comment. One of the things I greatly appreciate about this organization is that because the organization, following great advice of our advisors, has listened carefully and been good stewards of the resources entrusted to us, we've been positioned to, in the middle of a rainy day, i.e. the pandemic, return literally millions of dollars to our schools. And so I very much appreciate the past boards. I'm not sure if Dr. Shotwell still is here. He and his colleagues who preceded us on this board, who made wise decisions, and those who preceded them on the board to put us in the place we are now. So even to hear today that decisions we made a year ago to be more defensive have really helped us out, makes me feel good about the decisions that our committee has made, and certainly like to recognize Karen for any comments she'd like to make.
No, I'm just glad I was.
Me too.
And I want to piggyback on what Dr. Jackson said, and it's great that Dr. Shotwell is here. Dr. Shotwell was on this board when Davis Whitfield was here, and when we made those conscious decisions that our investments were at a point where we could begin then to return to our schools some of what they had entrusted us with in the form of those dollar surcharges, the endowment games, excuse me, et cetera. And so, as Dr. Jackson has said, we stand on the shoulders of those who made great decisions. And so, because of Jeff Hudson and Jessica and what they do to help us manage our money, we believe we continue to be positioned that if we make good decisions, that we will be able to partner with our schools for those rainy days and those inopportune weather events we have, that we can help out and service our schools in ways other than in the playing venue itself. So thanks to Dr. Shotwell, thanks to Charlie Adams for his vision all those many years ago, and thanks to Jeff and Jessica for what you do for us. Yeah.
I'll meet with investment committee later, or will? Okay. Okay. And then somebody's blocking me in.
You're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You park in the first spot. I parked in, yes, parking.
Could be me,
I might be here for a while, whenever it's convenient. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And we do appreciate the Finance Committee.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Dr. Shotwell. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Evan.
Great job, Evan. Thank you.
We appreciate those committees that work with Karen and Commissioner Tucker to guide us in that decision-making. Thank you very much. All right, we'll return to the agenda. I started to introduce the next section, having forgotten about the change in the agenda, so I apologize for that. But as we go into the affiliate member reports, and we mentioned this yesterday, we are, I believe, blessed by the relationship we have with our partner associations, the Coaches Association, the Athletic Directors Association, the various sport-specific coaches associations, and all the groups that we work with, and we very much appreciate that. One of the conversations that we have actually been a part of during our meeting this time, and one of the pieces that stood out in the officiating report that I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit that came out, was a desire on the part of the officials to have representation here as a member at the Board of Directors level. And so I just want to, as we get ready to go into our affiliate member reports, note again that we have just been so well served by Albert Lassiter and by his predecessors in that seat as a ex officio affiliate member of this board, who has, particularly in our committee meetings, just been so helpful in all that he has shared as he's advocated for our booking agents and advocated for, and that's an old term, booking agent, advocated for our regional supervisors, advocated for our officials, and we very much appreciate his service and his representation of all those that he works with and works for. And so, as we go through the affiliate member reports, what I'd like to do is invite you each just to come up in order rather than pause each time. And so our first report, as Elbert's coming forward, will be on behalf of officiating. That'll be Elbert Lassiter. He'll be followed by Vernon Aldridge from the North Carolina Athletic Directors Association, and then by Joe Franks from the Coaches Association, then by Burt Jenkins from North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and then we'll continue on with the agenda. And so at this time, I'd like to recognize Elbert Lassiter. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, President Jackson. Team, I know that they're sorry they're missing the fact that I can't talk. Hopefully they'll hear me tomorrow, so I will keep this short if I can. But I thought a lot about what I was going to report prior to coming to these meetings, and Mark Bird invited me to a meeting maybe a month ago that we heard from the initial report from the officials. And then once I arrived at this meeting today, every committee has had in their committee reports about this. We've had rich discussion. We've had, I was going to talk about 3 points: recruiting and pay and sportsmanship, and we've addressed all of those, more than addressed them. We've had a lot of discussion, a lot of ideas, and the thing that stands out to me the most is no one is against those things. We have this kind of open dialogue, and you mentioned a seat at the table, more than a seat at the table, an inclusive seat at the table, a voice at the table, a part of each and every conversation. Our committee meetings where my committee was looking for me for a lot of information about the officials and issues that I represent today. I want to say thank you for that. I'm glad that this particular session is being recorded. I think more people will realize there's a lot of people that this board, this association, cares about, concerned about, and working hard to resolve the issues that I was going to report on. I'm not going to give my report on this because we're talking through this, but I thank you for that, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I bring you greetings from our Executive Director of the NCHSAA, Roy Turner, 2022-23 President, our very own Chad Duncan of Gaston County. I know you hear this yearly, but the ADs Association truly appreciates its relationship with the NCHSAA and North Carolina Coaches Association. We share a common vision of providing the best educational-based athletic experience for the athletes in North Carolina. Thank you for this opportunity to share our vision on behalf of our member schools, city county athletic administrators, coaches, and the more than 300,000 student athletes that participate in our education-based athletic programs. The NCADA is proud to be a part of the North Carolina High School Athletic Association and honored to say we stand with the NCHSAA. Please look over the slide that you see your representatives for your region. Please feel free to reach out to our members with any questions or concerns you may have. The NCADA exists to assist you in our membership by providing the resources and tools you need to lead your programs. Our mission is to take a leadership role in athletic issues to enhance the educational process for student athletes. We want to partner with you to equip all administrators, coaches, and student athletes with the tools and resources for leadership. Over the past couple of years, our goals have not changed, but our paths and processes have. Be the leader you wish you had, and let us partner with you to lead your legacy. We want to equip all administrators, coaches, and student athletes with the tools and resources for leadership. We want to add value, inspire growth, and influence change. The thousands of students, athletes, and the coaches you coach that participate in our education-based interscholastic programs, thank you for leading the way. The NCHSAA has created new courses for mental health of coaches and athletes, partnering with parents, ethical decision-making, creating an awareness of diverse groups, and how to recruit, hire, mentor, and retain coaches. They're also offering safer school certifications, providing resources for after-school practices and athletic events. We continue to encourage national certification of ADs and coaches through the NFHS and NCHSAA. National recognition of athletic programs of excellence by creating level 1, 2, and 3 schools. The benefits of being a part of the NCADA as well as the NCHSAA is $1 million in liability insurance coverage, scholarship opportunities, resources, discounts on registrations, and personal and interactive webinars and professional development. The greatest reward is to be recognized by your peers, either here in the state of North Carolina by the NCHSAA or the NCADA, or nationally by the NFHS or NCHSAA. North Carolina is blessed to have some of the best ADs in the nation. Please help us by nominating a deserving difference maker in your school, conference, or public school unit by going to our redone NCADA.net website and click recognition. Just to go over a couple important dates for us in the NCADA is the 2022 NCHSAA National Conference this year will be held in Nashville, Tennessee, December 9th through the 13th. They're in the Opryland Hotel there in Nashville. I don't know how many of you have ever been there, but it's a beautiful facility, and I guarantee you if you attend, you will get lost at least one time being in that building. This is one of the closest conferences to us here in North Carolina, and this is one of the best conferences for athletic administrators in the country, with the opportunity to network with some of the best athletic administrators in the United States. Another important date for our association is our state conference this year. We'll be back at the Hotel Ballast in Wilmington, March 26th through the 29th, and we will be celebrating the 50th banquet this year in Wilmington, and we'll be having a banquet celebrating our 50th year of the history of the NCADA, and it will be held March 26th at 6 o'clock at the Coastline Convention Center. In 2024, the NCADA plans to return to Asheville for the first time in many years, so we're looking forward to our return to Asheville. And our last important date for our association comes with our Summer Leadership Academy. Will again be held this year in Greensboro in conjunction with the North Carolina Coaches Association Conference, July 17th and 18th there in Greensboro. In closing, I would like to thank Q and her staff for all that they do for our membership and our student athletes across the country. And again, thank you for such great hospitality while we're here in Chapel Hill for our board meetings. 4 organizations, the NCHSAA, NFHS, NCHSAA, and North Carolina Coaches Association work collaboratively with one vision, one mission, one team, and one goal. And that is to promote positive relationships and enhance leadership skills and opportunities for all of our stakeholders. Words of one of our association's friends, Jeremy Boone, he has one of my favorite quotes: "If your presence doesn't make an impact, your absence will not make a difference." Let us help you equip your community for leadership. Let's get better every day in every way and bring out the best in others. And thank you, everyone in this room, for all you do for student athletes in North Carolina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joe Frank, representing the North Carolina Coaches Association, and I've worked at the Coaches Association until 1987, and have been honored and privileged to be able to serve as a representative for our coaches and a voice for our coaches with this board as an associate member, or affiliate member. You know, Vernon talked about a great working relationship, Q's talked about it, Rob's talked about it. It's the truth. I mean, this bottom with NOCAD. NOCAD's the National Organization of Coaches Association Directors. In January, 22 state organizations right now, and probably more, are going to meet in Savannah. From Oregon to Florida, from California to Connecticut. Okay? And we're going to talk about the great working relationship that we have with the North Carolina High School Athletic Association, the North Carolina Athletic Directors Association, and so many of our state organizations in NOCAD that we're a part of have adversarial relationships with these groups. We are extremely fortunate, okay? Go to the next one, please. Just leadership. We have, just like in this board, we have leadership in districts across the state, and our statewide leadership, we're being led by Rob Maloney from Pitt County this year, okay? Collaboration. How do we work together? All right, first of all, board representation. It's a collaborative relationship between the High School Athletic Association, the Athletic Directors Association, and the Coaches Association. As far as our clinic, and I'll talk about clinic dates, the NCHSAA booth space availability, so they can talk to the coaches and interact with the coaches. Okay? That's extremely important, whether it's in the trade show or whether it's out in the lobby. Session area availability. This year, we had a session for athletic trainers because Ken Brown asked, Joe, can we do something, and for our athletic trainers? Sure. We were able to find a spot. Evan and I have talked, Evan mentioned it at the regional meetings, he wants to try to do something with SAC representatives that can talk to our coaches. We're going to do our best to make that happen and find space availability. Bert and I were talking last night about Middle School Monday and how that's growing. We've had to go from a room that was only about 50 people to a room that's one of our big meeting rooms that's set up for 300. And it's continuing to grow. It's fantastic that we've got the middle school ADs and the middle school coaches. We talk about feeder programs. Well, you got your feeder programs with your coaches too. So that's important. NCHSAA, classroom space for instruction. We've got those 2 spots right up there where they can hold their classes, okay? Matter of fact, North Carolina Basketball Coaches Association, they got that lunch, don't they, Fred? And we get a meeting room for them to be able to do that lunch and that interaction. Booth space availability if the athletic directors need it. The NCHSAA breakfast, how important is that? And the NCHSAA was able to use it this year, use the space for the awards presentations that we couldn't do at the annual meeting. So, we are working together. That's the important thing. We can go to the next one. Our All-Star Games and Coaching Clinic, okay? Now, we've gone to a 3-day clinic because, rules have migrated online, okay? And the reason we were going 4 days is because, football went Wednesday and then Thursday morning and you had the rules session. So we've cut that back. There wasn't any reason right now, and there isn't any reason currently, unless there's a change, to make that change. So we'll end up on Wednesday. We have our All-Star Games, okay? And this, should have mentioned this right off the bat. Vernon, you talked about the 50th anniversary of the NCHSAA 75th anniversary for the North Carolina Coaches Association Clinic and All-Star Games. And this year we'll have, again, basketball on Monday, soccer on Wednesday, soccer on Tuesday, football on Wednesday. However, our board voted to move the football game to December. So this will be, for the foreseeable future, and maybe forever, the last July football game the East-West football game that we'll have in the summertime. It'll go to December, it'll be played at Grimsley High School where it is now in Greensboro. And yes, we'll probably go head-to-head with the Shrine Bowl that's being played down in South Carolina. Will be played up here in North Carolina. Okay? Additional clinic opportunities. First responder training. We've got a young man, well, not young anymore, sorry, Scott, if you're listening. Scott Barringer with Atrium Health organizes first responder training. Now, the reason we're able to do that is because we've got a fantastic facility at the Greensboro Coliseum and Special Events Center. That's why we can do that. CPR and AED sessions. That starts on Sunday. The Coliseum has been wonderful to give us the ACC Hall of Champions boardroom to be able to do that. And the two guys that run that say it's the best setup that they've got. So coaches can sign up and get that done. The trade show for our coaches and our athletic directors. And Andy, we're going to make sure you can get in there too, because I know you're writing the check. Okay? So, we're going to work together. All right? One more. This one. How many of you got your gym to the jury when Q sent it to you? Absolutely. I will continue to say it's one of the best things we do. This is a nationally known risk management newsletter. And as long as we can afford to do it, we're going to do it. Okay? We send it out. We email it to our members and associates. We send it to the NCHSAA. We ask our ADs, send it to your administrators. If you can pick up one thing that might help you avoid potential liability, why wouldn't you read it? For goodness sakes, it's free. So, go ahead. Our websites, the nccoach.org, that's really more for the coaches. It's got the directory is available to members and associates. EastWestAllStars.com, that's everything about the All-Star games, All-Star history. Again, we're on Twitter and Facebook, just like everybody else, trying to get those social media interactions with our coaches and with supporters. And again, we're a service organization. We appreciate the opportunity to be involved with you. We're a phone call or an email away. And again, thanks for the opportunity to be here. We appreciate it. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. President Jackson, fellow board members and staff. As Joe was beginning his conversation, I was back there drawing lines through half the things that I was going to say. Talk about middle school Monday. There's just some updates for you from DPI. We do enjoy a collaborative conversation with you. I believe you and I talk on average about once a week. And obviously to everyone in here, we're always available to assist you in any way we can. As a matter of fact, I think I've spoken to everybody on the board one way, shape, or form in the past year, just with different questions. And please understand that we look forward to those collaborations and welcome the opportunity. First, I'd like to start with Gafella Waller. As I'm sure all of you are aware, each PSU has an audit at the end of every year. This year, the audit was actually pushed back to the end of October. During the audit is when Gafella Waller compliance is actually seen, so we will actually report the Gafella Waller results in our spring meeting. So that's actually going to be delayed a little bit. As Joe said, we have enjoyed Middle School Monday, and it has grown greatly. Again, the thing I want to make sure everybody understands is middle school, a lot of times you look at middle school as a feeder programs, and they are. It's a feeder programs for your students, also the feeder program for your administration, for your coaches, for your future athletic directors, but it's also an entity into itself. We have really good people who do really good things at the middle school, but with that Middle School Monday, as Joe said, we have actually expanded over the years. We went from a very small room to about this size to we had our biggest attendance this year, and it being the first day of the coaches clinic, a lot of people think, well, that will affect your attendance. We just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we thank you for promoting that to your middle school coaches, because it's really been a big situation for us to get a lot better. We're also promoting athletics through NC Shape. We're doing a lot of activities and professional developments through NC Shape as well as far as athletics is concerned. Each year we review our manual, and again, one of our biggest pieces is to try to take our manual and make it as close as possible to the High School Athletic Association for many reasons. We want the opportunity for the students to make the transition as easy as possible. We'll make the transition for your coaches as easy as possible. We're also doing it for your families, because at one time, just to give you an example, we had two different attendance policies. We had an attendance policy for middle school, but the high school had given the attendance back to the districts. So you have a situation where a family has a middle school student and a high school student with two pieces. So we try to remove all those things just to make the transition much easier. Just to give you some updates on what we've included in our manual updates this year, we have added an additional 8-day period to check grades at the end of first semester, just like the high school athletic association does. removed a number of restrictions in our off-season skill development, that now it's an unlimited, but it is a skill development, it is not a practice. We've changed the language and updated the opportunities for doubleheaders in volleyball, baseball, and softball, and we made some really big changes as far as wrestling goes. Wrestling is now allowed to do tri-meets, and we've taken by, and this was actually asked for by the districts across the state, and we're allowing wrestlebacks for the tournament. We have an 8-man bracket. Before we did not have wrestlebacks, but now we have wrestlebacks. So essentially, it was a really good thing because now students, if you lose in the first round, let's be honest, the periods are much smaller in middle school. Kid gets pins in 30 seconds, his tournament is over. Now with wrestlebacks, he gets at least one other opportunity, or she gets at least one other opportunity to participate. So again, those are updates as it is. We look forward to future collaboration. It's really good to see everybody. And again, we really thank everybody in this room for the awesome and outstanding job you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Certainly appreciate all of our affiliate members. Typically at this time, we would hear from our affiliate member representing the School Boards Association, now the State Board of Education. However, the State Board of Education is currently meeting, so our good friend Wendell Hall is where he should be, which is at the State Board of Education meeting. We appreciate that. We are now at a time for a break, Madam Commissioner. Yes. So we'll plan for a 15-minute break, so please we're going to cut that a little short. Please be back at your seats at 9:30, and for those listening online, we'll come back on at 9:30. So we'll take a break at this time. Thank you. Board members, thank you. As we return from our break, we turn to the work of the association. Our board meetings, for those listening online, during the first day, we have the opportunity to go into recess and work in committees to work very specifically on agenda items that primarily come to the board directly from our member schools. We are a member-driven organization, and perhaps one of the greatest examples of that is the operation of the board of directors. We operate at the behest of our members, and so all of that comes through our committees. And so we will begin our work with the report from our Review and Officiating Committee, ably chaired by Superintendent Mark Byrd. And as he comes forward, he mentioned yesterday, and I think it bears repeating, board members, pay attention as the chairs do their work. If you are a second-year board member, next year you will be a vice chair, and your fourth year you will be a chairperson. So as we watch our chairs work today, just know that will be you. And so we look forward to your continued service and those new opportunities. Chairman Byrd.
Thank you. Once again, President Jackson, Commissioner, like I said, what an honor it was to work closely. Again, I'll call them by name: Stephen Gagey, Brian Carter, Andy McCormick, Dan Jones, Gilbert Lassiter, Cecil Mock, and Evan Sauer worked with us as well. Our agenda items, the first item we had was the report, and we reviewed that yesterday, and so I would like to bring that to you as a motion, that this report be approved.
Thank you. Board members, motions coming from a committee do not require a second. There is a motion from the Review and Officiating Committee to approve the comprehensive listing of incidents per school. Any discussion? This time, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Nineteen opposed. Motion passes 19-0. Chairman Byrd?
Thank you. Our second item was a discussion item. We reviewed the ejection report. We discussed that with you yesterday. A key point, key takeaway after yesterday's discussion is that the data shows that a lot of things that we're doing right now in terms of sportsmanship are working, and so we hope to see that. I don't believe this requires approval at this time. Correct?
That's correct. Thank you, sir.
Third item, officiating report. After reviewing the report of the ad hoc committee, discussing their recommendations and their concerns, motion that following items take place shortly, or take place effective January 9th. The first is to eliminate the doubleheader officiating fee in all sports. Second is a 10% fee increase in all sports relative to the next dollar, or a 10% fee increase for all sports for officials. And number three, introduce a biannual review of officiating fees across all sports. And of course, this goes without saying, we would also include continuing to address sportsmanship across our state. So I would like to bring that to you as a motion from our committee.
Thank you, Chairman Byrd. Board members, at this time, we have a motion from the Review and Officiating Committee to eliminate the double-header officiating fee in all sports, provide a 10% increase in the fee for officials in all sports rounded to the next dollar amount, and to introduce a biannual review of the officiating fees across all sports that would be effective January 1st, 2023. Is there any discussion? Hearing none from the...
Mr. President, I would like to say that, as we review this, really appreciate everybody's work on this. This has not been easy, looking through and with the pricing and everybody's increases that they're looking at. I just think that we're having to do this in the middle of a budget year, on our member schools. Certainly the referees are very deserving, and our officials are very deserving of any thing we can do for them. I think it's also important to note that we have to continue to address the sportsmanship piece, because when we look at that report, it's job satisfaction as much as it was on the pay side. And the better we are to our people, we know the better they like to serve in these roles, whether we're talking about bus drivers, officials, or just being a good neighbor. So, really, for our member schools that are out there listening, getting this January 1 is going to have an impact, and we certainly hate that, but it's long past due to me on number one, eliminating the doubleheader officiating in all sports. I think that's something that could have been done a long time ago. The 10% fee increase, again, is a budget piece, but something that we recognize and really feel strongly to support this motion, but also to think about our member schools and what that's going to do in the middle of their budget cycle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gary. Other discussion from board members?
Yeah, Mr. President, one thing that a question with this too is, with that 10% fee increase, what happens to the 5%? Is that in regulation, or is that in, where is that 5% every 4 years?
Thank you, for the...
Supersede this.
Thank you for the question, Superintendent Gainey. Yes, sir, this motion, Chairman Byrd eliminates that automatic 5% increase and instead replaces it with a biannual review.
Yeah.
So every 2 years, that officiating fee would be reviewed, under this new proposal, should it pass the board.
So I want to echo Mark Garrett's comments regarding the timing of this. This is obviously going to be a very difficult thing. It's a difficult situation all the way around, including the budgets of schools. I also wanted to make sure, appreciate you clearing that up, Dr. Jackson, because that the 5% that's out there, the purpose of the biannual review was to shorten that window of time to see what might be done in a shorter window of time. So I want to make sure all officials out there understand that piece of it as well. And we don't have any confusion moving forward that this 5% is still coming, because it is not if this was to go through, right? That is
Yes, sir.
our committee's understanding.
With the biannual review, future boards may choose to do a larger increase, a smaller increase, or no increase. And so all of that would be on the table, and as you said, it shortens the window to review those.
The purpose of that was to not wait that window of time that was already laid out. That was our committee's discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you. Other discussion from the board? Hearing none, from the chair, I'll simply say, I want to commend, and I'm going to pause here, I want to commend the work of all 4 committees, because all 4 committees, from their particular facet and lens, took up this work yesterday. All 4 committees spent a long time in the ad hoc subcommittee on officiating's report. We very much appreciate that report. I just want to pause and say thank you to this board, because this board recognized a year ago, a school year ago, that we needed to take a look at the state of officiating in education-based athletics in the great state of North Carolina, and because of that, commissioned the ad hoc subcommittee that brings us to where we are today, with great data to use to be able to make good decisions. I appreciate the discussion on making a change in our budget. January 1 is tough for member schools. We recognize we need to take care of our officials. We certainly want to do that. We recognize there is still work to do. There's still work that's been identified in the report that this board asked for to continue to work on in the future, but certainly appreciate the work of all 4 subcommittees yesterday in working through this report. And so, board members, with no further discussion, again, to restate for you, we have a motion on the floor from the Review and Officiating Committee to do 3 things. 1, eliminate the double-header officiating fee in all sports. 2, increase the officiating fee by 10% in all sports, rounded up to the next dollar. And 3, eliminate the 4-year 5% increase and instead introduce a biannual review of officiating fees across all sports with a proposed effective date of January 1st, 2023. All those who are in favor of the motion on the floor at this time, please signify by raising your hand.
19.
19 opposed. Motion passes 19-0. Chairman Burke.
Yes, sir. Item 4 on the agenda, we reviewed a proposal from the Carolina Umpire Association. Part of that was addressed through item 3, part of their request, but also, there was a request to look at shortening games, or shortening time periods, and so, our committee would like to bring forth the motion, that in JV baseball only, that no new inning may begin after 2 hours of time has elapsed.
Thank you very much. There's a motion on the floor from the Review and Officiating Committee that in JV baseball only, no new inning may begin after 2 hours of elapsed game time. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, I also want to note, as we're talking about the officiating, challenges we've been dealing with over the last couple of months, this folds right into it as well. You know, you're now limiting a JV baseball game to a window of time instead of possibly a JV baseball game going 3 hours or whatever it might have in the past, because the 10-run rule didn't cause it to stop early. So to me, this is another quality issue towards the officiating challenges we've been dealing with, especially as what I've seen. I heard a couple things yesterday. I've seen it in our conference, a lot of JV varsity double headers, especially in the conference, which I've always been a fan of since back in the 80s when we were doing it where I grew up. So I think that needs to be noted, that this is another move towards working on this challenge we're having with officiating.
Thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, board members, the motion before you is to, in JV baseball only, no new inning may begin after 2 hours of elapsed game time. Those in favor of the motion before you, please signify by raising your hand.
Nineteen.
19 opposed. The motion passes 19-0. Chairman Byrd?
Yes, sir. Item 5 was to bring to you the name of Nicole May as regional supervisor for women's lacrosse in the Charlotte Association.
Thank you. Board members, you have a motion before you to approve Nicole May as the regional supervisor for women's lacrosse in the Charlotte Association. Any discussion?
Before we move, President, I think we may need to go back and re-vote on that last item for the JV baseball. I believe the count was wrong in the room.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Board members, I tell you what, and let me thank you for pointing that out, Mr. McCormick. Before we go back to that item, we do have a motion on the floor, so let's take care of the motion on the floor, and then we'll return to that item. Okay. So the motion on the floor is to approve the committee selection of Nicole May as the regional supervisor for women's lacrosse in the Charlotte Association. Any discussion on that item? Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Nineteen. Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes 19-0. Board members, we're going to return to the previous motion. If you would, please make sure that you're holding up your paddle, your hand pretty prominently. And if the count, we have staff members who are helping us with the count, appears to be off, please make the chair aware of it at the time so that we can make sure we're doing this very carefully, because this is impactful on many people across the state. We want to make sure that we're being very careful. The motion that we are going to readdress before the board, coming from the Review and Officiating Committee, is that in JV baseball only, no inning may begin after 2 hours of elapsed time. Any discussion?
Can I ask this, if it's a standalone JV game where it's not a JV varsity doubleheader, there would be no need to shorten the game to have that rule in place for 2 hours, and that was something that wasn't discussed.
Chairman Byrd, any?
We did not discuss that, and I wouldn't think, I may be wrong and others may disagree, but I really wouldn't think there would be a need to apply this in that way.
That would be my thinking. That was my only concern in that vote.
Well, that would change the motion.
Amend the motion to say only on nights of JV and varsity games or
So,
doubleheaders.
so as point of order, for the meeting, there's a motion on the floor that comes from the committee. If the committee would like to amend their motion, then certainly the committee can do that. Otherwise, we certainly could have a motion on the floor to amend the motion coming from the board. Would the committee like to, now you're getting deep into Robert's Rules of Order here, friends. Let's not push the chair too far, but would the committee, like to amend their motion to, limit the current motion for JV baseball to certain circumstances? Please.
Excellent point, but we live in a day and age that the little brother plays JV, the little older brother plays varsity away. You got one playing at home, one playing away, two different sites. Just food for thought.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
And that is a good point, food for thought, but I think that, in my opinion, that's few and far between as compared to shortening the game for standalone games. I hate to shorten, to Fred's point the other day, I hate to shorten games anymore when we don't have to, but when it's a doubleheader situation, I fully agree, with the situation of shortening it, but when it's a standalone game, I hate to cut kids short of opportunities just because it's 2 hours.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Lindsay.
Just to, underpin Mr. Tyson, I can see where, and maybe we need to change the language of it to say, in the event that there's another game following the JVs, that it be a 2-hour limit, but I think that we don't want to just set a 2-hour time limit on all JV baseball games, because we're supposed to be encouraging participation. That is the feeder for the varsity, the more opportunities they get to play and be involved in game situations. Is very important as we move through, so I just want to kind of underpin what, Mr. Tyson just said.
I think our committee is willing to amend our motion, correct? And this is only applicable to doubleheader.
Well, we do think it's worth noting, though, that this original request came from the officials association as a means of the fee that they were getting paid to do a JV game versus the fee they would be getting to pay to do a varsity game. And some of the JV games were running as long or longer than a varsity game. So that's where the original idea of shortening the JV game came from. Just throwing that on the table.
Brad, Commissioner Alphen.
Is it effective, the original motion effective for spring of '23?
I did not hear an effective.
That was our intention.
Effective spring of 2023. Thank you for that clarification. Board members, I think it's difficult for a committee, absent convening, to amend a motion. So I'd like to move forward with the motion on the floor, and we'll see where we are. If the motion does not proceed, then certainly we could either have another motion from the floor, or the committee could bring it back up at our spring meeting. And so I'd like to continue any further discussion board members may have.
So just to clarify, we're going to revert back to the original motion that we have in front of us, which is in JV baseball only, no new inning may begin after 2 hours of elapsed time.
Correct.
Period.
Effective spring 2023. That's correct. So we'll leave the motion as has been presented and made by the committee, and we'll see where we are after the board has an opportunity to vote on the motion. Very good with the process.
Yeah, we're good.
We're calling for another vote.
Right, that's exactly right. There was a question about the vote, so I don't want anybody to leave wondering about
That's right, I forgot.
the authenticity of the question about the vote. So we want to make sure it's very clear. Everything we do is very important. Okay, board members, the motion before the board from the Review and Officiating Committee is that in JV baseball only, no new inning may begin after 2 hours of elapsed time, effective spring 2023. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion before the board at this time, please signify by raising your hand.
Ten.
10. Those opposed?
Eight.
8. Motion carries 10 to 8. I would simply say at this moment, if the Review and Officiating Committee would like to revisit that in the spring, that's certainly within the purview of the committee. Okay, Chairman Byrd.
Yes, sir. Last item we had, item 6, was a discussion item where we discussed, future needs for second semester and for 2023-2024 with the risk supervisors.
Thank you very much, Chairman Byrd. Okay, at this time, board members will turn to the work of our policy committee and Chairman Superintendent Kathy Moore. Chairman Moore.
Everyone, I'd like to start by thanking the members of the committee. Lots of good discussion and lots of good insight that led us to the recommendations and overview that we will give today. Members of the committee include Todd Morgan, who is the vice chair, Superintendent Tanya Turner, Brian Tyson, Larry Williford, Wendell Hall, and the staff contact is Brad Alford. First item from the committee does have a recommendation associated with it. We reviewed and discussed procedures that are in place and policies of the High School Athletic Association regarding the gender of a player, gender identity work, and the gender identity committee. The recommendation that is before you in the form of a motion from the committee is to request that the previously approved gender identity request must be reviewed on an annual basis. That does come in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Chairman Moore. Board members, before you is a motion from the policy committee that the previously approved gender identity request must be reviewed on an annual basis. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion to approve the gender identity request, have that reviewed on an annual basis, please signify by voting yes. Nineteen. Any opposed? The motion passes 19-0. Chairman Moore.
Thank you. The second item was a discussion item only regarding name, image, and likeness. The discussion from the committee here really was centered around the fact that there is not currently NCHSAA policy and structure around this phenomenon that has occurred in our country, and that it may be advisable for a future committee or group with multiple stakeholders involved to get together, to get ahead of this, take a look at what's happening nationally across other high school associations for a potential future recommendation. It was discussion only, there is no action. The next item that was discussed was sportsmanship, and this particular case, we reviewed the language around sportsmanship that is currently in the handbook. We really felt that there are a lot of excellent best practices for sportsmanship that are part of the High School Athletic Association handbook, but we did discuss how difficult it is to understand how that is applied and emphasized at the actual school level during athletic contests, and mentioned the possibility of staff reaching out to NFHS in particular to have a module perhaps created specifically around sportsmanship and game management in particular, because it really was an issue of game management, and the different folks who participate in game management whenever there is an athletic contest. Again, this is a discussion item. The next item, as was mentioned previously, every committee yesterday did discuss the NCHSAA Ad Hoc Committee on Officiating's report. And there, we've already voted on some of that work today, and, the one thing I think that was mentioned to our committee was the potential to look at policy, best practices, et cetera, regarding officiating, in particular the sportsmanship that I just mentioned, and even look at potentially a multi-year plan for how that work looks, and so that we can keep it front and center before us on a regular basis. The next item was also a discussion-only item, item 5. This was a letter that was sent by Mountain Island Charter Athletic folks regarding scheduling. Mountain Island Charter sent a letter to the association expressing concern about their non-conference opponents and not having, being able to schedule Gaston County non-conference opponents where their charter school is, Mountain Island Charter is physically located. We just reviewed the handbook policy here, determined that it is up to the conference schools, the member schools, and the PSU to handle non-conference scheduling of games. Item 6 was a discussion about the senior Tar Heel athletic card. This is a pass that the NCHSAA recognizes. A conversation here really just centered on some questions about how the cards are issued and used, and the recommendation here was just that staff follow up with the issuing agency to express those concerns so that they are aware. The next item, item 7, does come with a motion action from the committee. This is around media credentials. We discussed here concerns that have been brought to the High School Athletic Association about the criminal records background check that may or may not exist for those who are seeking media credentials from the NCHSAA, and out of an abundance of caution and best practice, we are recommending approving a policy that media outlets must provide a background check history for personnel requesting credentials, media credentials, and that personnel not belonging to a media outlet must pay for a background check conducted by the NCHSAA prior to approval. That does come in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Chairman Board members, we have a motion before us from the Policy Committee requesting that we approve a policy that media outlets must provide a background check history for personnel requesting credentials. Personnel not belonging to an outlet must pay for a background check conducted by the North Carolina High School Athletic Association prior to approval. Any discussion?
So I have a question. Does this go into effect immediately as we move forward with new credentialing? But is this to go into effect for the next cycle of credential?
That was not a specific discussion item of the committee, but I would think that what we contemplated was that it would go into effect for any new credentials moving forward. I do think you can probably request it from those outlets that already have folks that are in there, but additional questions, I think.
Here.
Would the committee look at January 1, 2023 potentially as the start date to coincide with some of the other actions that we're taking here?
I think that would be consistent with the remainder of the actions that have come. Anybody from the committee have any questions about making it with an effective January 1, 2023 date?
Hey, James, just a question. When do we normally, is there a time frame that folks wanting media credentials usually request those? I mean, does it typically happen at the beginning of the school year, or does it happen throughout the year?
Majority of what we credential happens during the beginning of the school year, because we do them on an annual basis for the year-long passes. There is credentialing that is done on a single event basis for state championships. That's certainly a question that I would ask you guys to consider. How would you go about handling the single event requests, which are usually done on a much shorter timeline than our annual pass holders?
So just I guess a follow-up question to that then. So we have football state championships that are coming up next weekend. When do you normally get requests for those who want media credentials for the football state championships?
They start today through next Wednesday is the request window.
So I guess just looking at it from kind of a day-to-day perspective of what we do, sometimes it takes a little while to turn those background checks around. Do we need to have in place a a cutoff date for those requesting media credentials to have that information turned into the association by, so that the background check can be verified in time.
I would say yes. I also recognize that this is a pretty significant shift in how we've done media credentialing over the history of the association and across the nation. This is not something that has been done by other state associations. And one of the things that I would request of the board is, while I think this is a valuable and important action for us to take, I would ask us to take time to get some feedback from accredited members of the media as to how this would best work moving forward into potentially next year, so that we can set the system in place and make sure that it's successful.
So are you, I mean, we got effective date January 1, 2023. Your comment makes it sound like maybe we need maybe a window of 6 months, because here's just my concern. Getting a background check done is one thing. What's on the background check is the other thing. So,
Sure. I think having some lead time to establish the system that we need to
what are you
manage
gonna do
all
with
of
it when
this.
because somebody may walk in with one and you may have to say, well, no, you can't, and so I don't know what that effective date.
Let me just say that we had a situation to occur that we need to address. And while I respect the idea that we would delay this, I understand that. But I think that if come January 1, with anybody who's going to be handling our football championships right now, they're grandfathered.
Right.
In January 1 until we have our next championship, I think we can get some feedback from the media outlets and come up with some determination. But once this hits the media, which is hitting right now, then if I'm one of those independent media persons, I'm going to go ahead and get my background check just in case I might want to do that. So I think it's important that we recognize that there could be some issues, but I think our young people deserve us being, y'all, I remember when we weren't even doing background checks on officials. And I remember Dwayne Stalin sitting over there where Brad Alford is sitting, saying as a superintendent of Perquimans that he was uncomfortable that we didn't have background checks. And the board at that time said to Mark Driverbus, or maybe it was Mark, we need to get into this business of it, because our young people deserve it. Anybody else who goes on, you guys employ people who have background checks. And so I think, I don't want us to, I recognize what James has said, but I think January 1 is sufficient, and I think it covers us through football, which is our biggest championship coming up right now, and we just need to get the process in place.
I'm not questioning the need for it. I'm not questioning the need for student safety and other people's safety. I think it's definitely there. I did an HR role for 5 years. I understand the need, and we all deal with it now. I just think we got a lot of work to do between now and January 1 to get ready for the different things that are going to come with this.
Well, but again, the vast majority of these folks already have the credentials
From their employer. It's going to be a matter of how many come one at a time.
Thank you. Mr. Clinton?
I think the other thing that we're going to have to figure out is how often are we going to require these to take place, because, somebody has a background check this year and they do something that might show up. So we've got to figure out what the time frame is going to be. We're going to have them do it every 6 months, every year.
It's annual media credentialing. Media credentialing annually, is that correct?
Yes. There are two types of credentialing. We have annual media credentialing, which we use for members of the media that cover many, many sports across the entirety of the year. There are several outlets, and in some cases, even your outlets that cover everything don't request credentials from us because they don't expect to get to the state level. And so a lot of times those outlets will use the single event process when they get into a state championship for track, or football as it's upcoming, volleyball, if they happen to get a team there, they'll use that single event process to credential those workers that they would need for that specific event. So, that's one of the things that I think logistically we need to look at how best to make that work so that we are maybe requiring an annual check and not, well, this person's only covering volleyball, they got a check, and now they apply again for different credentials for baseball, and can they use that same check? Do we know who they are enough to do that? Because those things are pretty fluid right now. That was my only comment. There is some infrastructure that needs to be in place to help make that a smooth process.
Thank you. Mr. McCoy?
Mr. President, I just want to, I mentioned that Mr. Gainey, being familiar with the HR hiring process, with the outlets providing their own checks, what concerns me, knowing there are different levels of background checks. Because I know school systems use a higher level that digs a little deeper, and some agencies may only use a little blanket check, and it's not digging deep, and there's other stuff there. Because I've seen it before in the school system, they'll clear the initial, but then when the secondary report comes in, something pops up on there. So I'm just questioning, with the media outlets furnishing us with proof that they've conducted a background check, to what level have they done that to? That's just going along with Mr. Gainey saying we've got to make sure this plan is in place to secure the safety of our student athletes and coaches.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Two parts, I think, that a lot of our media does a lot of good and a lot of publicity for our students. So thinking through it, and I heard a comment that I'm not sure from who, and so I would rely on the people that are much wiser than me to talk about whether it's 24 hours, so is it a one-time deal to make it more convenient while still keeping our children safe? A one-time process that it would roll over as far as the background check goes. So I don't know those things, this is the process for what the background check we look for, as far as 24-hour monitoring or not.
Thank you. Board members, I've held back my comments, allowing board members to speak first. I think that's appropriate for the chair. I will say, as we all know, but we haven't said yet out loud, there's nothing more important than the safety of our students and our staff. I love the media. I appreciate the incredible work they do in highlighting our student athletes, our member schools, our teams, our coaches, our Hall of Fame. I love the media. But I am very aware that in our schools, credentialed media personnel have access to our students and to our staff members that a fan wouldn't. So the difference between fan and media is the media gets to go sometimes into the locker room hallway, sometimes standing next to the kids on the court. So they're going places a typical fan couldn't go. And I agree, having worked just as many of you a long time through many of these processes, putting in place background checks for our staff members, that there are many levels and a lot of complexity. And so I wouldn't expect, if this goes through, effective January 1st, that what we have January 1st is what we have in 6 months, or what we have in 12 months, or what we have in 3 years. I would expect the process to improve. But for myself, I trust our staff, and if we move forward and there's a question about something that pops up on a background check, that our staff will work together, and that would come to our commissioner, who would make a decision about whether or not that person should be approved for a media credential, and that in the future, protocols and processes would be brought forward to the board to say, going forward, here's how we will handle, and here is the background check that we'll accept, and all the things that we all do in our day-to-day work. But I don't want our board to lose sight of our number one mission is to keep our students and staff safe. And I'm not saying we have. I know every single one of you agree with that passionately. And so I certainly want to give opportunity for any further discussion. The motion before us is that from the policy committee, we approve the policy that media outlets must provide background check history for personnel requesting credentials. Personnel not belonging to an outlet must pay for a background check conducted by the High School Athletic Association prior to approval with the effective date of January 1st, 2023. And to the commissioner's point, hopefully our media folks will get on it, particularly if they want to cover, and if they have to cover an event from the stands, unfortunately that might happen while we're getting this up to speed, but hopefully folks will give us grace and understanding that we're trying to take a step, if the board decides to go that way, to keep our students and staff safe. Yes, sir. Do you have something further? Okay. They're looking at me like I didn't want to say anything. All right. Any further discussion?
Again, President Jackson, I think it's very clear this is a general policy for the staff then to build the scaffolding under that policy, and they can work alongside the media to do that, to make it more conducive for everybody. But I agree with you, as does the rest of this room. Our number one concern are our student athletes and our staff who work day to day with our student athletes.
Any other discussion? Okay, board members, the motion before you from the policy committee again is to approve a policy that media outlets must provide a background check history for personnel requesting credentials. Personnel not belonging to an outlet must pay for a background check conducted by the High School Athletic Association prior to approval with the effective date of January 1st, 2023. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
19.
Any opposed? And the motion carries 19-0. Thank you, Chairman Moore. Members, at this time, we'll turn our attention to the Sports Committee report from Chairman Troy. Chairman Lindsay.
President, Madam Commissioner, bring this report to you, Sports Committee. Sports Committee, along with myself, Mr. Mark Garrett as the Vice Chair, Mr. Chad Duncan, Mr. Boone Leathers, Mr. Vernon Aldridge, Mr. Joe Frank, in conjunction with staff Trey Waters and Rhonda Roberts. To continue the Sports Committee process of kind of mixing up a little bit of the agenda items. I'm going to do that because of one agenda item is dependent upon another. So we're going to start on the agenda with item number 2. Item number 2 addresses basketball shot clock. Recommendation was to approve the adoption of the 35-second shot clock rule in basketball using a 3-year phase-in period. This item was discussed yesterday with the full board fully, and it will remain a discussion item for today. Next item that we're going to bring forth to you is the dual team tennis playoff expansion. Recommendation from the Tennis Coaches Association to expand the dual team playoff format in tennis. The proposed format would be 64 teams in the 3A, 64 teams in the 4A, 48 teams in the 2A, and the 1A would remain with 32 teams. This, if approved, this recommendation would go into effect in the 22-23 school year. Mr. President, bring this forward to you as
23-24.
I'm sorry, 23-24. My bad. Thank you for sketching that. Can't even read my own notes. President, I bring this forward to you in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Chairman Lindsay. Board members, we have a motion from the Sports Committee that the dual team tennis playoffs in tennis expand to 64 teams in 3A, 64 teams in 4A, 48 teams in 2A with no change to 1A. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion to expand dual team playoffs as listed, effective with the 2023-2024 school year, please signify by voting yes.
19.
Any opposed? The motion passes 19-0. Chairman Lindsay?
Yes, sir. The next agenda item is the dual team tennis partial team. Recommendation matches played against partial teams, meaning that the opponent has fewer than the number of members required to make a team, that those matches not be counted as wins or forfeits, not be included in conference or overall records, and not be included in the calculation of automatic first in the dual team tournament. This item was brought forth yesterday in the preliminary report, and it was discussed fully by the board, and it will remain a discussion item for today. Item number 5, update the North Carolina High School Athletic Association handbook language as it pertains to volleyball. The recommendation was to review and adjust the handbook language. The sports committee viewed the proposal. The committee felt like that this does clarify the language as it exists now in the handbook, and it will make it easier to understand for our athletic administrators and coaches throughout the state. So, President, I bring this recommendation forward to you as a motion to be effective for the 23-24 school year.
Thank you, Chairman Lindsay. Board members, we have a motion from the Sports Committee to review and adjust the North Carolina High School Athletic Association handbook language regarding current tournament rules and structure in the sport of volleyball. Any discussion?
I think it's important for us to note that while he didn't go through each of those, there is a handout, and as we make this, the results of the vote, if it does pass, then we will share all of that with the membership so they know exactly, and obviously they have seen that, but just so that there is clarity, and I think it was handout attachment 5 in the sports packet.
That be covered in the rules clinic prior to volleyball season?
Yes, absolutely.
So that would also be covered in the rules clinic prior to volleyball season next year?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Board members, again, you have a motion from the Sports Committee to review and adjust the North Carolina High School Athletic Association handbook language regarding the current tournament rules and structure in the sport of volleyball. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
19.
Any opposed? Motion passes 19-0. Chairman Lindsay.
Third, item number 6, the Golf Coaches Association, recommendation to amend the current handbook policy 4.6.1 as follows: maximum score rule on a hole. No student athlete shall score more than triple bogey on any hole during the regular season. Once a student athlete has reached the threshold, they follow up for a triple bogey and move forward. This policy would apply to regular season, regional, and state championship play, and it would go into effect in spring of 2023. The committee, which, as shared with you yesterday in our discussions, felt that this would help our championships and our regular season play with time constraints and, of course, issues that we have with our golf courses. And so we bring this forward to you today in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Chairman Lindsay. Board members, you have a motion before you from the Sports Committee to amend the current handbook policy 4.6.1 in as follows: maximum score rule on a hole. No student athlete shall score more than a triple bogey on any hole. This applies to the regular season, regional, and state championship play, effective spring 2023. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion before you, please signify by raising your hand.
19.
19. Any opposed? And the motion carries 19-0. Chairman Lindsay.
Gentlemen, item number 7, once again, as pertaining to golf, state championship qualification. The Golf Coaches Association was to adjust the current policy for state championship qualification from the regionals to the following: men's golf state qualifying 3 teams per regional, and will qualify and be allowed to take 5 players. Top 9 individuals in the men's that are not on a qualifying team advance to the state championship. In women's golf state qualifying, 3 teams per regional will qualify and be allowed to take 5 players. top 17 individuals that are not on the qualifying team will advance to the state championship. This to go into effect in the 23-24 school year, the committee. And this was brought forward yesterday in our preliminaries. It was fully discussed, and we feel that this will bring everything in line, equity for each, and with the state championships, make it a better environment for our student athletes. So, Mr. President, I bring this forward to you in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Chairman Lindsay. Board members, you have a motion before you from the Sports Committee to adjust the current policy for state championship qualification from the regionals to the following. For men's golf, the 3 teams per regional will qualify and be allowed to take up to 5 players forward to the state championship. The top 9 individuals that are not on a qualifying team will also advance to the state championship. In women's golf, the top 3 teams per regional will qualify and be allowed to take 5 players each to the state championship. The top 17 individuals that are not on a qualifying team will also have the opportunity to advance to the state championship effective with the 2023-2024 school year. Any discussion?
Mr. President, I think it might be good if our staff members could explain, when we talk about this being equitable, there's obviously taking the top 9 of the boys after the team qualifies, the top 17 of the girls. So Brad, do you mind to share that a little bit?
Be glad to. In the state championship format, and in general, our classifications, there are 4 boys classifications. Those are participants in women's golf, the 1A and 2A are combined. So to get equal representation, so to speak, from a percentage standpoint, we have to take the women's region.
Thank you very much. I think that's an important point that we want to give equitable opportunities to our men and women golfers. Thank you very much. Other discussion, board members? Hearing none, again, board members, you have a motion from the Sports Committee to adjust the current policy for state championship qualification in the sport of golf effective 2023-2024 school year. Those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries 19-0. Chairman Lindsay.
Number 8 came from Union Academy in regards to the regional assignment. The recommendation was to approve the move of Union Academy from the 1A West region to the 1A East region. 22-23 individual wrestling regional competition. This was brought to the board yesterday. The preliminary report was discussed very fully. After the discussion, we, as a committee, had stated that with the fluidity of the individual qualifying brackets and that format, that this was going to be a discussion, and it was discussed fully yesterday and shall remain a discussion item.
Thank you, Chairman.
Item number 9 on the agenda was officiating. This was to review and discuss the High School Association Ad Hoc Committee report on officiating. We were given that report yesterday, as every other committee has presented today. We have voted on something already today, but the committee would like to say that we fully support the proposal from the officiating committee and look forward to a better relationship and partnership with our officials. And that is the open discussion.
Thank you.
So the last item, we're going to go back to agenda item number 1. The board has approved the expansion of the dual team playoffs. This is an amendment to the proposed calendar, sports calendar for the 22-23 school year. This, now with the expansion of the playoffs, this will require an additional round added to the calendar for attendance. We discussed this yesterday. The amended calendar proposal was given to you yesterday. In that discussion, you should have received an updated calendar or proposed calendar today. So we are bringing that a proposed amended calendar for the sports schools in 23-24 school year, and also the 23-24 football schedule. President, we bring these items to you today in the form of a motion.
Chairman Lindsay, for clarification, the amended sports calendar is for 23-24, football calendar for 23-24?
Is the same.
I've got
There
it.
was no change to the football calendar. This is only dealing with tennis for women's in the fall and men's in the spring.
Thank you very much, Chairman Lindsay. Board members, you have before you a motion from the Sports Committee to approve the amended sports calendar for the 2023-2024 school year and the football calendar for 2023-2024. Any discussion?
If you will, I don't think we handed out a revised calendar to you, but if the calendar that you have, if you need to just go in and in that dual team bracketing right here, we'll make sure that we email you a clean copy. Yeah.
Madam
Yeah.
Commissioner, the additional round would be round 3. Would be round 3 or round 4?
We added a fourth
Round 4.
round, and some of the dates shifted based on the proposed, from the proposal from the tennis coaches. They gave some proposed dates of how to fit it into the playoff calendar without shortening their regular season. So we took their plan to implement the date.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Again, board members, you have a proposal or a motion before you from the Sports Committee to approve the amended sports calendar for 2023-2024 and the football calendar for 2023-2024. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
Nineteen.
The motion carries 19-0. Thank you, board members. At this time, we'll turn our attention to our Finance and Personnel Committee report, ably led by Vice President Chris Blanton. Vice President Blanton.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. I'm here on behalf of the Finance and Personnel Committee today, members of that committee, Vice Chair Bobby Wilkins, Fred Lynch, Paige Badgett, Bert Jenkins, and Commissioner Tucker, Karen DeHart, and Tavares Toomer, who is not able to be with us today, but we appreciate all the input that he gave us. Agenda item number 1 was to review the audit for the 2021-2022 fiscal year that ended June 30th, 2022, and just as a reminder, that was presented, voted on, and approved yesterday, so we don't really have any action that we can take for that right now. Agenda item number 2 is to approve the 2022-2023 annual operating budget. Again, just as a reminder, we discussed this yesterday. It might seem a little odd to anybody that we're approving the budget for a year that's already, the fiscal year started in July. But this is the first meeting of the full board. Probably just again, one of the biggest things to note as board members as we vote to approve this, this will be the 3rd year in a row that the projections are to finish in the red. President Jackson, the committee brings this recommendation forward in the form of a motion.
Thank you, Vice President Blanton. Board members, you have before you a motion from the Finance and Personnel Committee to approve the 2022-2023 annual operating budget, to review the revenues and expenditures to date. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will simply say I very much appreciate the report from the auditor we received yesterday, to receive a report that the association finances look the way they do, and to hear from an outsider that we are being careful and good stewards of the resources entrusted to us on behalf of the student athletes and member schools of the association was very gratified. So again, board members, you have a motion before you, gratifying. You have a motion before you from the Finance and Personnel Committee to approve the 2022-2023 annual operating budget and review revenues and expenditures to date. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand.
19.
Any opposed? Motion carries 19-0. Vice President Blanton?
Yes, sir. Moving right along, agenda item number 3 deals with women's wrestling and regional ticket pricing. The recommendation that we would like to bring forward as a committee would be to assign $8 women's wrestling invitational regional tournament. Just another point of emphasis to note that this takes place in January 2023, so far out from this being implemented if voted on and approved by the board. And President Jackson would like to make a recommendation in the form of a motion that we assign a ticket price of $8 for the women's wrestling invitational regional tournament.
Thank you very much. Board members, you have before you a motion from the Finance and Personnel Committee to assign a ticket price of $8 for the Women's Wrestling Invitational Regional Tournament to be held on Thursday, January 26th. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion before you, please signify by raising your hand.
19.
Any opposed? And the motion carries 19-0. Vice President Blanton.
Agenda item number 4 is a item only, and we heard a little bit about this earlier today from Jeff Hudson and Blackman Sweet, who did a tremendous job. I guess one thing that I would say is that I always appreciate hearing from him, but I think that company has done and will continue to do a fine job for the association in managing our funds. He told us last year that we were going to go into a defensive position, did that, and it was nice to see how that played out from here. So again, discussion item only for agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 5 is also a discussion item, and that was the sports comparison report that we looked at in length yesterday. You have that in your packet that I know you've already reviewed, so again, discussion item only. We are returning to pre-COVID numbers, which is nice. Agenda item number 6, we talked about the endowment fund distributed membership, and that was a discussion item only. I think that the biggest thing to take away from this is that the association has been able to return funds to member schools, and that's something that I think everybody in this room should be proud of. I appreciate the work that this board and previous boards have done to make that possible, along with the staff, the guidance of the staff, so thank you for that. Agenda item number 7 is dealt with the education-based grant report. Just as a reminder for that, we are in the 4th year of our education-based grants. I believe, if I remember correctly from our discussion yesterday, we had 20 that we received, and I think that we had 6 pending. We are continuing to award that $150,000 from the General Endowment Fund. Just as a reminder to everybody in this room and everybody listening, there is a $10,000 cap per discussion around that. Agenda item number 8, our corporate partnership update. Our corporate partnerships do continue to be strong. We looked at the 12-year revenue summary. Just a reminder, we are in the middle of our 3rd year working with Teal Property Groups, and our staff continues to work with partnerships that have been formed before we started working with Teal Partnership Groups. I think our staff, along with what they're doing, is helping the association to continue to grow financially. Agenda item number 9 is the endowment fund management, and we had some discussion about this yesterday. This was originally listed as discussion item only, but in the work of the committee, a decision was made that we would like to bring forth a recommendation in the form of a motion that President Jackson appoint an ad hoc committee comprised of board members to initiate the process for establishing a separate foundation to manage the High School Athletic Association endowment funds. This discussion came, there was a lot of discussion, but this has been considered before, and I guess we feel like it's time, the committee felt like it was time, given the difficult nature of making this happen and some of the advice that we've received over the past 1.5 years. So again, President Jackson would like to bring this recommendation in the form of motion that we form an ad hoc committee.
Thank you. Board members, you have before you a motion from our Finance and Personnel Committee that directs the President of the Association to appoint an ad hoc committee comprised of North Carolina High School Athletic Association Board of Directors members to initiate the process for establishing a separate foundation to manage High School Athletic Association endowment funds. Any discussion? I will simply say, as the chairperson last year of the Finance and Personnel Committee, this has been an ongoing conversation for some time. We have received actually recommendations from members and other leadership organizations in the state, and that this would be a way to go forward. And so I certainly appreciate the committee's recommendation that we continue this work through an ad hoc committee that would forward the steps, or at least advise us on potential future steps going forward. Any further discussion? Again, board members, you have before you a motion from the Finance and Personnel Committee that the High School Athletic Association appoint an ad hoc committee comprised of North Carolina High School Athletic Association Board of Directors members to initiate the process for establishing a separate foundation to manage the North Carolina High School Athletic Association endowment funds. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? The motion carries 19-0. All those who just raised their hand are hereby appointed to the ad hoc. In all seriousness, before returning to Vice President Blanton, board members, this opportunity for us to establish a separate foundation to manage the endowment fund is extremely important. As always, we do want to be careful stewards of those resources that have been entrusted to us, particularly as we recognize the important and valuable work the endowment has done for our member schools. That being said, if you have an interest in serving on that ad hoc committee, I would be very interested in hearing from you, so please reach out to me if you have an interest. If we have sufficient volunteers, that'll be great, and if not, some will be voluntold. So at this time, we'll turn it back to Vice President Blanton.
Sir, agenda item 10 was the officiating report again. I don't know that I have a lot to add to what's been said to that. I just appreciate the fact that it was discussed in all committees. I appreciate the work of the committee and the recommendation and full board voting to approve that. And then agenda item number 11 again was our personnel report. Questions? Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Vice President Blanton. Thank you, board members. That was certainly a lot as we went through the four committee reports. Prior to moving forward with the agenda, I would like to pause for a moment from the chair and just highlight one of the items that we worked through. It is not often that our board is divided on something that comes forward from the board, and when that happens, it certainly stands out to me, and upon reflection, we did approve, and I'm referring specifically to the proposal from our officiating committee that in JV baseball, training may begin after 2 hours of elapsed time. That did pass, and we'll move forward with that. What I would like to do, though, if I might, as from the chair, is ask that Assistant Commissioner Brad Alford, who leads our baseball, the sport of baseball, that throughout this first year of implementation, that he work with our baseball coaches and with our athletic administrators to see how it goes. And then at our May meeting, which will be towards the end of our first season of baseball, since this decision's made, I'd like the sports committee, I think that's the best committee for that, to work on that, to revisit the issue, to determine if any further changes are needed, recognizing that our board was divided on that issue. Although it was approved and we will go forward with it, I do want to recognize we had some things brought up.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And at this time, we'll turn to our commissioner for our commissioner's report.
Well, I want to thank each of you for your work over the last few days. But then I want to reach back and thank this board for your support and work for the student athletes in this state, really since COVID. When we recessed our spring sports, and then as we moved into trying to recover and figure out how we move forward, the board at that time met so many times on Zoom, and I know they were sick of me sending an email saying we need to meet, and meeting on Sunday nights and, on board meeting nights and church nights. And so we certainly appreciate that. I appreciate it more than you know. I wasn't a history buff when I was in high school, and when I went to college, of course, I had to take a history course. But I do remember that Thomas Paine made this statement: "These are the times that try men's souls." So I want to change that to say these are the times that try our souls. And I think over the last few years, and even over these last few days, we recognize that these are the times that try our souls. The problems we face can neither be changed nor fixed overnight. It will require some negotiations with all parties, and all is underlined. It is not a time to resort to social media and the use of name-calling. It is not a time for the blame game. I am disappointed that we found ourselves as a board in a position that we had to make some immediate decisions that financially impact our schools. Not that our officials don't deserve it, but I believe our membership deserves a little bit more advance notice. And so I'm disappointed that we found ourselves in that position. But I am grateful that we made an attempt this morning with the votes to help our officials financially. But as the data has shown, dollars and cents will not fix the issues that center around bad behavior, lack of respect for officials, and all parties in conducting our athletic programs. Yes, these are the times that try our souls. But as Kay Yao would say so very often when I was on her staff, we cannot change the direction of the wind, but we can adjust our sails. And so I want to thank you as board members for adjusting your sails as you made decisions this morning, and that you, using an old basketball term, that you pivoted so quickly to allow our students to continue participating in education-based athletics. My hope now is that everyone, from students to coaches, from administrators to parents, and from general spectators to, yes, even our officials, will help all of us bench bad behavior. That is the genesis of a lot of what we have been dealing with over the last few days. And so it will take all of us working together. And I pledge to you as president, vice president, past president, and board members that our staff will do our part, but adjust ourselves to do what we can on a daily basis to help the membership understand the role that we all play, because we are the NCHSAA. And somehow that's difficult to get everybody to understand that, yes, we are the staff, and yes, we get the brunt of the social media posts. My mom sees all those postings about me. But that's our job, and we have to have the broad shoulders to be able to move forward and do what we need to do, because, believe it or not, we believe in education-based athletics. I've been in it a long time, and certainly I would not have stayed if I did not believe in education-based athletics. And so, as we move forward with the charge you've given us today, we will do our part as a staff, but I know that collectively we will do everything we can to ensure that education-based athletics continues to do what it always has done, and that is provide those teachable moments for the young people we are blessed to be able to work with on a daily basis. I wish each of you traveling mercies as you go back home, and as we fully embrace the coming season, this Christmas season, that we all will have an opportunity to pause and reflect on a year that ends December 31. But if we just think back to when we began it and what we were doing to get ourselves to March 14th, when we signed an MOU, and to all that we've done to still be standing and to still be standing strong. So I hope you all have a great Christmas holiday. Thank you, President Jackson.
Madam Commissioner, thank you so very much, and to our entire staff, I certainly want to echo our Commissioner's words in saying thank you for the incredible job you do every single day. Madam Commissioner, you referenced a powerful, inspirational female leader in your life who spoke into your life, and her wisdom still guides you today, and I want to do the same. In my career, I had the opportunity to encounter an incredible female leader, just happens to be female, actually sitting on this board, Miss Tanya Turner, who said to me when I arrived in the school system the following: your talk talks, your walk talks, but your walk talks louder than your talk talks. Your talk talks and your walk talks, but your walk talks louder than your talk talks. That took me a lot to practice to be able to say that correctly. Thank you. But there's power in that simple saying from a rural part of our state, that our actions speak louder than our words. And I'm so very proud of the actions of this association. This is our 110th year of service to student athletes and member schools across this great state. And I'm so proud to have an opportunity to serve along with each of you who are willing to give those late Sunday nights to get together. The Commissioner and I, on a Saturday, 2 weeks ago, were in an appeal hearing because that's what it takes to serve our member schools, and I appreciate that every single one of you answer the call because your walk does talk. Our walk talks in the form of $12,780,304.72 returned to member schools over the last 12 years. $12 million returned to member schools because Board of Directors previous had the foresight to put together an endowment. We do have challenges. We have great challenges. We have unfortunate behavior choices that we work through, and we'll continue to have challenges, and we understand that. But as we are on the eve of our state football championships next weekend, and I hope many of you will be able to join us for that great celebration as those teams have the opportunity to play for a state championship as we continue into our winter sports season. Many of you are headed to ball games tonight and into the weekend. I just want to take a moment to also, in the midst of the challenges, celebrate the incredible things happening for children, for young people, for teenagers, and for our member schools. I'm so very proud to be able to say with you that we are the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. That being said, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Second from Troy Lindsay. All in favor, please raise your hand. And the motion carries 19-0. Thank you, board members. Stand adjourned.